Welcome to another episode. Today, I'm not in my games room, I'm actually in my living room. I had to come out here because I wanted to do an episode on magazines, video game magazines. These are all the video game magazines I collected over the years, and it's quite a few. I just thought I'd take this episode to look back on video game magazines in general. It's funny, a lot of people have asked me why I still have all my video game magazines, and it is kind of unusual because I take up an entire closet that I could use for other things. You know, I could clear this out and, but I kept them for a certain reason. Each magazine has a bit of history to it, and I don't know, I'm just looking at this one, Game Players. I don't know what year this is, 1989. And on the back, I see the advertisement for Bad Dudes. On the front it says Sega Genesis first 5 games. Then Keith Courage in Alpha Zones. Totally nostalgic. That's why I have all these magazines. They're like a look back into the past in a way that I don't think you can really get at times on the internet. Yeah, I'm thinking back to 1988, and there was no video game magazines, there was nothing at that point. And then onto the scene came GamePro and EGM. It's pretty cool to see. I love looking at this issue of GamePro. I must admit over the years, GamePro was not my favorite magazine, but I'm pretty nostalgic. Here is Volume 1, Number 2 of GamePro. And just to show you the year and the time of it all, there's an advertisement for Metal Gear on the NES. Talked about this as well. Another great magazine back in the day was GameFan. GameFan was a really, really great magazine. Really hardcore, elitist fans talking about their opinions, and their opinions were, I wouldn't say they were right all the time, but they were hardcore. And I was hardcore at the time, and I was like, wow, somebody who's writing about, import games and things like that. It was really exciting to be able to check that kind of stuff out. Man, I love flipping through this stuff. This is so cool. So here's another good magazine. I don't know if you can see it. It was the official Dreamcast magazine. That's such an awesome magazine. I love this back in the day. This is the Phantasy Star issue. God, I remember picking this up. I was on vacation and I read through this magazine like 1,000 times. Oh God, you're gonna love this too. It says here on the cover, the Dreamcast 2, Sega's future plans revealed. Boy, oh boy. Yeah, but it's really funny. These video game magazines are so nostalgic. I was pulling these out of my closet and I'm looking through some of them and I'm just tripping out. I pull out this GameFan magazine. I don't think you can see it. And just looking at it, and Panzer Dragoon Saga and the making of Final Fantasy VII. Stuff like that. This is why video game magazines are so cool. I remember this was a really big issue at the time. It's Electronic Gaming Monthly. And this was actually a big issue on Street Fighter 2. It was the first magazine I ever read that had coverage of Street Fighter 2. It's funny, I still use video game magazines to do research on some games, some old games that I like. You can find information in video game magazines that, obviously are not on the net, and especially old video game magazines. They're really, really useful for going back and finding some really obscure information in games. It's funny, I was just flipping through here and I completely forgot about a really old Sega CD game called Woodstock Funky Horror Band. That is so weird, I completely forgot about that game. Yeah, but here's another fun memory of mine. Video game magazines so used to be the only way I could get my information on games that I remember there was an EGM coming out and it had exclusive shots of, at the time, Zelda 64, the Ocarina of Time, and it was snowing out, it was a blizzard, and I remember getting in my full gear and walking for miles to, because we couldn't drive, the weather was so bad at that time, walking to a grocery store, convenience store, to buy my copy of EGM, just so I could see, and it ended up being 2 screenshots of Zelda 64. And it was actually a pre-Zelda 64 screenshots when I look at it now. But that's pretty nostalgic that I was such a hardcore guy. I'd actually, hiked up there and to get this magazine, and it was so amazing. I went home and, just sat and looked at that magazine. Oh, I gushed on it. I looked at it for weeks, really. And people would come over and I'm like, oh my God, check this out. That's how you did it back then. It was all about video game magazines. So I can't say in the late 80s, early 90s, video game magazines were gold. They were lore. This was where all information came from. It was awesome. And video game magazines that showed import games, wow, you can only be so lucky. Like EGM and Game Fan used to be like one of the most. I look forward to those magazines. I'd actually look at my watch, look at the calendar, and go, oh, I got another week to go before Game Fan is in the store, so I can go pick it up. It's kind of like, this kind of reminds me of something. It reminds me of downloading games. These days, like Mega Man 9 that you can download, but you can't physically own the game. And I think that kind of sums it up for the internet with video game information. You can download all the information and check it out and all that, but you can't physically, hold that information in your hand. And magazines can never be replaced for that. But I'm sure everybody can agree that over the years, magazines have absolutely taken a beating from the internet. It's funny, the video game fan in the past compared to the video game fan now. I swear I can make a great comedy show on that. Because, say in the late 80s, a video game fan was a kid sitting in his room with a stack of magazines and maybe a console in the, a Nintendo Entertainment System or a Sega Master System in the living room. A fan now, would be a kid on the internet talking to thousands of people about one aspect of a video game he hasn't even played yet, while listening to the music of that game that hasn't even been released. And in the other room, he's got his PlayStation 3, Blu-ray, being able to play movies on it and video games on it, and also connect to the internet and talk to his thousands of friends on that as well. It's just amazing how technology has shaped the way of media over the last bunch of years. It's incredible that that kid in the past was just by himself or with his friends at school or friends around the neighborhood, where the kid now is disconnected to the world. But it's funny looking back at all these magazines. It really is. Just seeing this to me is video game history right here. None of these magazines are worth a penny each, but they are extremely, in my mind, collectibles. In that each magazine has a place of history for games of that particular month, particular year, particular day, and the internet's really replaced the need for magazines. But I always believe that there's a spot for magazines. That's why they're still on the shelves. There's people buying them. I still buy them and all that. So here's a good question for you guys. What's your favorite video game magazine? What was your favorite video game magazine? Anyways, yeah, tell me which ones you liked. Until next time.